When we discuss transit, we're usually caught up on rail, which makes sense. It's flashy, it's the highest level of service, and it's what most American cities are honestly lacking. I know when I go on vacation to different cities, whether inside the US like Boston or Atlanta where I used to live, or outside of the US like Milan or Vienna, I'm typically using their rail systems, not their bus. But the truth is that for most cities, the humble bus is the real workhorse of the transit ecosystem. Actually, most American urban areas don't have any rail network to speak of, and this is especially true in Broward. Sure, we have two inner city rail lines in Tri-Rail and Brightline, but for the vast majority of the county, the only transit that exists is our bus service operated by Broward County Transit. In this video, I want to talk about the bus service in Broward, its shortcomings, and how we can improve it. Small spoiler warning, Broward's already got a plan in place called Primo that will be a huge game changer, so stick around for that. Just to give a bit of context on Broward County, it's one of the three major counties that comprise the Miami metropolitan area, home to about 2 million people out of the 6 point something of the region as a whole. If you just look at it on Google Maps, it'll probably give you this big rectangle. But the truth is that the entire population of the county lives in just this section of it. 2/3 of the county is protected because it's part of the Everglades. It's bordered on the north by Palm Beach County, on the south by Miami-Dade, and on the east by the Atlantic Ocean. The urbanized area is about 20 miles wide at its widest by 23 miles long for an area of 420 square miles. The eastern portions are the older and slightly denser cities, while the western portions are a lot of car-dependent American suburbs. The built environment is not really conducive to transit use, but this is the place that BCT is tasked with providing transit service for. Here's the map of service. It's got 36 fixed routes and a couple of express routes going down to Miami. The system gets about 80,000 daily riders, good for about 2.4% of trips taken in Broward. Big yikes. So what are the problems here? Well, you can't ignore the fact that the transit system here was built with the idea that it was only going to be used by people who don't have access to a car, and that unfortunately still shapes the system. Let's start with the service problems. The first thing to know is that these buses are very infrequent. While many urban areas will have busier routes be serviced with headways of a bus every 10 minutes or less, in Broward, the tippity top of current service, the highest ridership routes, have peak period headways of a bus every 20 or 30 minutes at best. For the rest of the day, you're not getting a bus more often than every hour or so. A lot of routes have weird headways of like once every 42 minutes or once every 56 minutes. It just makes it really complicated and hard to use, and if you miss your bus, you're out of luck. On a personal note, this happened to me recently. I wanted to take the Route 22 to downtown Fort Lauderdale, and the bus came to the stop a little bit early, so it left a bit before it was supposed to, and I missed it, with the next bus coming an hour later. I took my car instead. The second main issue with the buses is the speed. Here's a table showing the average speed of the top 10 highest ridership routes. They have a hard time reaching even 15 miles per hour. You could probably bike faster than most of them. If you're brave enough to bike down here, that is. People generally aren't going to use transit if it's that much slower than driving. Then, of course, you have built environment problems. A lot of the stops just drop you off in empty parking lots or on a patch of concrete, with no sidewalks or crosswalks to let you go anywhere. So there's nowhere convenient for you to walk to when you get off the bus. Additionally, a lot of it is just car-centric bad design, with low density outside of a few places and lots of free parking everywhere, even in downtown. When everything screams, this is a place for driving, not for walking, then you're not going to get a lot of bus riders. For a county where the local politics are dominated by the unaffordability of housing and transportation and traffic concerns, we haven't really been doing much to help the one thing that can address these issues. So what can we do to fix this? Well, thankfully, a number of transit experts have already laid it out for us. Jarrett Walker, the author of Human Transit and a consultant who helped design Houston's bus network redesign and Miami's Better Bus Network, says that to attract ridership and just straight up provide high-quality bus service, you need to make it faster, more frequent and reliable, and simple for people to understand. There are some rules of thumb here. First, let's talk frequency. Generally, frequencies of 10 to 15 minutes or less are the tipping point for when people feel comfortable with not needing to look up schedules, and like it's actually convenient and reliable. For speed, there's no set number like there is for frequency, but of course faster is better, and once transit is competitive with cars, you'll get choice riders. And as for simple to understand, make your routes as close to a straight line as possible, instead of a route that takes lots of twists and turns. The best bus networks are grids of straight-line, high-frequency routes that get people to most destinations in a reasonable amount of time. If you have the time, I highly recommend either reading Human Transit or watching this presentation Jarrett did in Orlando. Here's the good news. Back in 2018, Broward County voted to approve a 1% sales surtax to go towards transit and other infrastructure. And after a few years and lots of studies, Broward County Transit came up with the Premium Mobility, or Primo Plan. It consists of a light rail line that I need some more time to really form an opinion on, helping bring commuter rail to the FEC, take a look at my previous video about Tri-Rail to hear more about that, and the creation of a bus rapid transit, or BRT network, supplemented with higher frequencies on other high ridership routes. I took the time to read a lot of their studies that are published on their website, such as the Demand for Ridership Summary, the Transit Systems Definition Report, and the Corridor Transit Type and Implementation Strategy. These are fantastic resources that show the methodology and process behind how the Primo Plan was created, looking at population density, job density, where redevelopment is expected to happen, and other factors that influence transit use to figure out where the transit demand was concentrated. Of course, it isn't perfect, and it's not a totally finished product, but the bus network it proposes is excellent. It creates that ideal bus network of high-frequency, straight-line routes that make the bus easy for the average person to use and supercharges ridership, and I hope it will create a positive transit cycle here in Broward. A lot of the proposed routes, like Oakland Park Boulevard, University Drive, and State Road 7, have been due for a higher level of transit for a long time, and it's great that they're finally getting done. They're also going to conduct something called a comprehensive operations analysis to see how they can improve the rest of the bus network, looking at things like stop spacing, rerouting some routes, or possibly cutting or replacing routes entirely. Of course, the key to the whole thing is the BRT network. BRT has distinct characteristics that make it a higher level of service than a typical bus, such as enhanced stations with level boarding, signal priority at intersections, and dedicated transit lanes. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation, these characteristics make BRT more than twice as fast as normal bus service. The Federal Transit Administration goes further, saying that BRT lines can typically reach speeds of 30 miles per hour in urban contexts. This sounds slow, especially here in Broward, where most of our arterials have speed limits of 45 miles per hour. But here's the thing. I've actually taken to timing myself when I drive around recently, and once you factor in waiting at lights, traffic, and parking, my average speeds almost never hit 30 miles per hour. A BRT line would go faster than you can drive in Broward, but it requires all the characteristics that make it a BRT to provide that level of service. Needless to say, politicians here are really hesitant to do any of that. When BCT did their Primo presentations for bus rapid transit to the municipalities, the city councils of Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, Davie, and Plantation all fought back against the idea of giving up a car lane for transit. This sounds hard, but it really isn't. Look at the roadways we have here in Broward. These are all 6 to 10 lane arterials, where the right-of-way reaches up to 150 feet wide at some points. Are you really telling me that there's no space for a couple of these lanes to be painted red and say bus only? We have to give our entire urban area to cars and cars only? Give me a break. But here's the thing. Everywhere in the US that they've installed bus priority and taken space away from cars, the car traffic got faster too. As the bus becomes a more attractive option and is competitive with cars, a lot of people are willing to switch from driving to the bus, which frees up space in the remaining car lanes. If our leaders really cared about reducing car traffic, this is step number 1. But this plan really needs support from local governments and, by extension, really from normal, everyday residents of the county. When BCT comes to the cities asking to take a lane from cars for the bus, or to give the bus priority at intersections, they need people to show up at City Hall and County Commission meetings in support, to tell their city councilors and county commissioners that they want better transit service. The cities also need to support transit from a land use perspective. Get rid of minimum parking requirements, and allow mixed-use apartments to be built where the bus routes are. I went over this quite a bit in my previous video about Tri-Rail, but having development that supports a transit network is literally half of the equation. But there it is, the good and the bad of transit in Broward County as of now. It is getting better. I've actually never felt more hopeful for the future of transportation here, but it needs our help to see it through to the finish line. I hope you all feel the same way I do. Well, wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving and business-oriented weekend. When you're out shopping, try paying attention to the types of businesses around you, because that's what I'm going to be talking about in the next video. Stay tuned for next time.